Let's take it live to this now. President Cyril Ramaphosa about to deliver the eulogy at the funeral of the late former member of the presidential panels, Silumko Sokupa.
Program directors, Minister Togo Didiza and Mr. Lumkom Timde, President Thabo Mbeki, Dr. Sipogazi Sokupa, Bishop Malusi Mpumlwana, members of the Sokupa family, ministers and deputy ministers here present, and leaders of political parties who are also here in various formations, members of the diplomatic corps, and comrades and friends and fellow mourners. As you might have seen in the program, was meant to make my very few remarks about our brother much earlier, but was so moved by the occasion of this moment that I felt that my program should be changed and I should stay. And I'm rather pleased that I was able to do so in order to immerse myself in the memory of this man that I got to know and to appreciate and to love. It is with great sadness that I stand here before you to bid farewell to one of the veterans of our liberation struggle, a respected member of the intelligence community and a fine and upstanding public servant. Comrade Sox was part of a generation that fought fiercely in the 70s as well as in the 80s for the attainment of our freedom. He was one of the generation charged with translating the theoretical perspectives of his movement, the African National Congress, into policies that would make freedom meaningful for our people. With the advent of democracy, Sox was one of those given the task of forging a new democratic state with the capacity and the orientation to build a better life for all. Like many of his generation, he was conscientized during the late 60s in the Black Consciousness movement led by Steve Biko. He was part of the generation that kept alive the flames of liberation that the apartheid regime sought to extinguish by imprisoning our leaders and forcing them into exile. His political grounding in the South African Students' Organization, like many of us were in, where he served in a number of positions, was to establish in him a lifelong commitment to improving the conditions of the people of our country. Beyond the broader struggle for national liberation, Comrade Sox and his peers sought very practical solutions to the challenges that face our people on a daily basis. Armed with very few resources, but driven by great conviction, they set up health facilities, law clinics, adult literacy programs, and other initiatives that had a great impact on the daily existence of Black South Africans during that period. When the apartheid regime intensified its repression, Comrade Sox took the difficult decision to leave the country and join the liberation movement in exile, as we have heard. He worked tirelessly in the underground and played an important role in the ANC's intelligence work. After the unbanning of the liberation movement, Comrade Sox played a pivotal role in rebuilding the structures of the organization in the Eastern Cape. Despite his preference to provide leadership from the background, he was elected regional chairperson of the ANC border region in 1991. His election as someone who had just returned from exile speaks volumes about his leadership capacity and the high regard in which he was held within the structures of the mass democratic movement. Those who served with him in the Regional Executive Committee remarked that his quiet but firm leadership style was highly appreciated by all. He was deeply principled, as we have heard, and never sought positions, never sought publicity, nor personal wealth. These leadership features and attributes of being quite firm were important because the complexities of our transition to democracy demanded nothing less. Comrade Sox was a dedicated public servant who served with distinction in every position he occupied and every responsibility he was given. He played a particularly significant role in the transformation and development of our intelligence services. He understood more than many the place of intelligence in a democratic society. He understood the purpose of the intelligence services as guardians of the people, of their rights, and of their constitution. In a difficult field of work, in an environment often shrouded in secrecy and intrigue, he stood firm on the preeminence of the Constitution and the rule of law. It must have been deeply distressing for him as a member of the high-level review panel on the State Security Agency to witness how far our intelligence services had strayed from their essential purpose. I remain extremely appreciative of the insight, the diligence, and integrity that he brought to his work. I'm grateful to Comrade Sox and his fellow panel members not only for exposing the severe weaknesses in the agency, but for providing a clear roadmap towards the agency's recovery and restoration. I'm particularly grateful to him and Professor Sandy Africa and Advocate Mojang Gugumbi for their outstanding work in probing government's response to the public violence and destruction that occurred in parts of our country in July of last year. In undertaking these tasks, Comrade Sox was honest and measured, he was deliberate, and he was principled. Where he found fault, he sought solutions. Throughout this work, indeed throughout his life, as we have heard, he remained true to his character and true to his convictions. He remained true to his movement, but most of all, he remained true to his people, but also his family. It was out of his deep love of his people that was born his deep disappointment at the extent of corruption in our society. He saw state capture and corruption as an assault on the poor and the vulnerable people of our country. He saw it as an act of counter-revolution, eroding the democratic state and stealing the resources meant to improve our people's lives. Corruption and state capture constituted the very antithesis of what he stood for, which was service to the people without expectation of any personal material gain. In honor of Comrade Soks, we must remain resolute in our work to end corruption and state capture, whose details continue just spilling out as the Zondo Commission hands down its various reports. We must not waver in our efforts to renew and to rebuild the movement that he so diligently served. Yes, we must forge ahead with the restoration of the integrity and credibility of the intelligence services of our country, our law enforcement agencies, and all our other public institutions that are meant to serve the people of our country. Most of all, we must pick up the spear where it has fallen, and indeed, a big tree has fallen. But we must pursue with greater urgency and purpose the achievement of a democratic society that is free, peaceful, and just. I think, having heard the annals of Comrade Soks' life, we should learn from him the qualities of selflessness, sacrifice, hard work, discipline, and love for the people of South Africa. We will always remember Comrade Soks as a brother, a husband, a father, a grandfather, a teacher, a disciplined cadre, a consummate professional, and a humble leader. The death of a friend is a tragic time for many who knew him. Friendship is one of the most important things that we have in life. The love and support we get from our friends is invaluable. And today we got to hear from his friends and from those who were close to him how valuable he was to them. Friends stick by us. They see us at our worst, are there in hard times, and do so selflessly. So when we lose one of those friends, it can be devastating. The pain of losing someone so important and so special to us cannot be overstated. But how can we deal with the grief that the death of a friend leads to? How do we get by when a loved one is torn from our lives? My sister Sipokazi, when I last spoke to you, before he left us, I could sense your anguish and your pain at his deteriorating condition. We know that as a family, you look to understand what has happened. And may you find some relief in knowing that Comrade Soks was deeply loved and valued by many in our country. He came into the lives of many of us, and I can say that he has left his footprints on our hearts, and we will never forget him for his humility, for his gentleness, and for his humanity. And thank you for being there. And I would say many of you, as you related precisely the relationship that you had with him. From you, Bishop Mpumlwana, and to many others who were close to him, thank you for being there for him till the end. May his soul rests in peace, and may he be remembered forever as a revolutionary who contributed so greatly to our country. Thank you.
Wow, what a touching eulogy there by President Cyril Ramaphosa at the funeral service of Silumko Sokupa. The president saying the pain of losing someone so important, so special, is immeasurable.